In the year 2100, humans had taken to the stars. They traveled from planet to planet, exploring new worlds and seeking adventure. Among them was Captain Jake, a brave soldier known for his courage and quick thinking. He was part of a special program that sent soldiers into deep space for long missions. The program used advanced technology that put people into a deep sleep, called cryogenic sleep, so they would not age during their journeys. One day, Jake and his team boarded the spaceship Elysium. The ship was designed to explore the outer edges of the galaxy. As they settled into their cryo chambers, Jake felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. He knew that when they woke up, it would be years later. This is going to be an adventure, he thought before falling into a deep sleep. But things did not go as planned. While Jake slept, a critical malfunction happened on the ship. The control systems failed, causing alarms to ring loudly. The ship drifted through space, lost and alone. After many years, the ship's systems began to reboot. Unfortunately, something went wrong. Instead of waking the crew up when they were supposed to, the system only activated Jake's chamber. Jake suddenly awoke. He felt a strange sensation, like a bolt of electricity running through his body. His eyes flew open, and he looked around. The chamber was dark, and alarms were still blaring. He felt confused and scared. What's happening? He wondered. He tried to remember his mission, but everything was hazy. Slowly, he got out of the cryo chamber, his legs feeling weak and unsteady. As Jake stepped out, he noticed that the ship was silent except for the alarms. The lights flickered, casting eerie shadows on the walls. He quickly realized he was alone. Where is everyone? He asked himself, his heart racing. He made his way to the control room, trying to piece together what had happened. When he reached the control panel, Jake saw that the screens were flashing with warnings. System failure, one screen read. Crew missing. Panic gripped him. He ran his fingers through his hair, trying to stay calm. He had to figure out what to do. Suddenly, he noticed a different chamber in the corner of the room. It was glowing softly, unlike the others. Curiosity pushed him forward. As he got closer, he saw that it contained a beautiful alien woman. She lay in a cryogenic chamber, her long, shimmering hair floating around her like a halo. Jake's breath caught in his throat. Who is she? He wondered. The sight of her took his breath away. There was something magical about her, something that made him feel a strange connection. Jake's mind raced as he thought about what to do next. Should he wake her up? What if she was dangerous? But the urge to save her grew stronger. He quickly examined the controls of her chamber, searching for a way to awaken her. After a few moments, he found the button and pressed it, hoping for the best. The chamber hissed, and the lights inside began to glow brighter. Slowly, the door opened, and Jake took a step back. The alien woman stirred, her eyes fluttering open. For a moment, she looked confused, just like Jake had felt when he woke up. Then her eyes locked onto his, and he felt a spark of recognition, as if they were meant to meet. "Where am I?" she asked, her voice soft and melodic. Jake's heart raced at the sound of her words. He smiled nervously, trying to find the right way to explain. "You're on the Elysium," he said, his voice steady despite his nerves. "I woke up early due to a malfunction. I'm Captain Jake." The alien woman's gaze softened as she took in her surroundings. "I am Princess Lyra," she replied, her eyes wide with wonder. "What happened to me?" Jake quickly explained the situation. He told her about the cryogenic sleep program, the malfunction, and how he had found her. As he spoke, Lyra listened intently, her expression shifting from confusion to concern. "We need to fix the ship," she said, her voice firm. "I must return to my people." Jake nodded, feeling a surge of determination. "I'll help you. Together, we can fix this," he replied. They spent the next few hours working side by side. Jake showed Lyra how to use the control panel, and she used her intelligence to help him troubleshoot the ship's systems. As they worked, They learned more about each other. Lyra shared stories about her home planet, a place filled with beauty and magic. Jake spoke of Earth and the adventures he had experienced. With each passing moment, their bond grew stronger. Lyra's laughter echoed through the control room, filling it with warmth. Jake found himself captivated by her spirit and kindness. He felt a deep connection, as if they were two pieces of a puzzle that had finally come together. Just as they started to make progress, an alarm sounded again. Warning: approaching enemy ship detected. The control panel blared. Jake and Lyra exchanged worried glances. They knew they were not just fighting to save the ship but also their lives. The adventure was just beginning, and they would have to rely on each other to survive. This unexpected wake-up call had set them on a path neither had anticipated, but together they felt ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The Princess Awakens. As alarms blared around them, Jake's heart raced. He had just met Princess Lyra, and now they faced an enemy ship. The situation felt like a nightmare, but Jake knew they had to stay focused. "Lyra," he said, trying to keep his voice steady, "we need to figure out what that ship is and how to escape." Lyra looked at him, her eyes filled with determination. "I will help you, Jake, but first, we must learn about the enemy," she replied. They quickly returned to the control panel, where Jake had a clear view of the incoming ship. It was sleek and dark, a stark contrast to the bright colors of the Elysium. Jake typed commands into the console, bringing up information about the enemy vessel. "It belongs to my people," Lyra said, her voice dropping to a whisper. "They must think I am in danger. Or they might want to take you back by force," Jake added. He could see the concern on Lyra's face, and it made him feel protective. "We need to prepare for a possible attack." Jake worked with Lyra to scan the ship's systems. They needed to find a way to defend themselves. Lyra's knowledge of her technology was impressive. She quickly showed Jake how to use the ship's weapons. "These can help us if they attack," she explained. With a few adjustments, Jake felt more confident. He could operate the ship's laser cannons, but he also knew they had to be smart. "We need to outmaneuver them," he said. "We can't let them get close." Lyra nodded, her expression serious. "I can help with that," she replied. "I have a special ability to sense energy flows. It can guide us." "Energy flows?" Jake asked, intrigued. "What do you mean?" Lyra took a deep breath. "On my planet, we are connected to the energy around us. I can feel it and use it to navigate." She closed her eyes for a moment, concentrating. Jake watched her, fascinated by how her face lit up with focus. "I can feel the enemy ship's movements. If we act quickly, we can escape." Jake was amazed. "Okay, let's do it." He took the controls, ready to follow Lyra's guidance. As they maneuvered the Elysium, Lyra whispered directions, her voice calm and steady. "Turn left now. Accelerate." Jake followed her commands, and the ship swerved away just as the enemy fired its weapons. The blast rocked the ship, but Jake kept his grip tight on the controls. "Keep going," Lyra urged. "We need to create distance." Jake focused on the controls, feeling the adrenaline pump through him. He could see the enemy ship trying to adjust its position. Suddenly, Lyra shouted, "Now!" "Cut the engines for a moment." Jake hesitated but did as she said. The Elysium drifted quietly, hiding behind a nearby asteroid. The enemy ship flew past, searching for them. Breathing heavily, Jake glanced at Lyra. "Did we lose them?" Lyra opened her eyes, a smile breaking across her face. "For now, yes, but we need to keep moving. They will come back." Jake nodded, feeling a mix of relief and urgency. "Let's get out of this area. We need to find a safe place to regroup and figure out our next move." He carefully piloted the ship away from the asteroid field, keeping an eye on the sensors for any sign of danger. As they continued, Lyra turned to him, her expression softening. "Thank you for saving me, Jake. I know this is all new for you. You are very brave." Jake felt warmth spread in his chest at her words. I couldn't leave you behind. You're important to me, Lyra. He paused, realizing how genuine his feelings had become in such a short time. I'll do everything I can to protect you. Lyra smiled, her eyes sparkling. And I will help you in return. Together, we can find a way to solve this. After some time, they located a nearby planet on the ship's sensors. We can land there, Jake suggested. It might be safer, at least for a little while. Lyra nodded, her face serious. Let's do it. I need to see what resources we can find. My people may come after me, and we need a plan. As they landed on the planet, Jake was struck by its beauty. The skies were a brilliant blue, and the ground was covered in soft green grass. Exotic plants dotted the landscape, and colorful creatures flitted through the air. It felt like a dream world. But Jake knew they couldn't relax yet. After they disembarked, Jake and Lyra surveyed their surroundings. We should find shelter, Jake said, and maybe some tools or supplies. Lyra agreed, her eyes scanning the area. There is a cave not far from here, she pointed. It may provide us some safety. They made their way to the cave, and inside, they found a cozy space with soft, mossy ground. It was a perfect place to rest and plan their next steps. We can stay here for a while, Jake suggested. It's safe. Lyra smiled, looking relieved. Thank you, Jake. I feel safe with you. As night fell, they settled in the cave, sharing stories and laughter. The fear of the enemy ship faded into the background, replaced by a warm connection between them. They felt more than just allies. They felt like partners. Jake realized how important Lyra had become to him in such a short time. He admired her strength and grace, and he felt a strong urge to protect her. Lyra, in turn, appreciated Jake's bravery and kindness. The stars twinkled above them as they talked late into the night. They were no longer just a human and an alien. They were two souls connected by a shared adventure. Together, they would face whatever came next, determined to forge a new path for both their worlds. Facing problems together. As dawn broke over the alien planet, golden rays of sunlight poured into the cave. Jake and Lyra woke up feeling refreshed, but the weight of their situation still pressed on their minds. They knew they had to come up with a plan to evade the enemy ship and ensure Lyra's safety. Today, we need to gather supplies and think about our next move, Jake said, stretching his arms. Lyra nodded, her expression serious. Yes, we need food, water, and any tools we can find. I want to be ready for when my people come. Jake looked around the cave. Let's explore this area first. We might find something useful nearby. They exited the cave, stepping into the beautiful alien world. The lush greenery surrounded them, and strange, colorful plants swayed gently in the breeze. Jake couldn't help but feel awed by the sights. As they walked, Lyra used her keen senses to lead them. She pointed out edible fruits hanging from trees and showed Jake how to pick them safely. These are called glimberries, she explained, her eyes lighting up. They're sweet and give you energy. Jake tasted one and smiled. Wow, these are delicious. They filled their packs with fruits and searched for water. After some time, they stumbled upon a crystal-clear stream. We can fill our bottles here, Jake said, kneeling down to take a drink. Lyra joined him, and they laughed as they splashed water at each other, the fear of their situation momentarily forgotten. Once their packs were full, they sat by the stream, planning their next steps. We need to find a way to send a signal for help, Jake said, tapping his fingers on a rock. But I don't know how to communicate with your people. Lyra looked thoughtful. I might be able to use my abilities to connect with the energy signals in the air. I can try to send a message to my planet. She closed her eyes, concentrating deeply. Jake watched her, amazed by her focus. Okay, I'll help you, he said, feeling a sense of urgency. What do you need from me? Lyra opened her eyes, excitement in her gaze. Just keep your mind clear. I will need your energy too. Jake nodded, trying to calm himself. He focused on Lyra, trusting her to guide him. As Lyra began to channel her energy, Jake felt a warm sensation enveloping them. Colors swirled around him, and he sensed a connection to the planet and Lyra's world. It was unlike anything he had ever experienced. "I can feel it," he exclaimed, exhilarated. But then suddenly, a loud noise shattered their moment. A distant roar echoed through the trees, sending chills down Jake's spine. "What was that?" he asked, looking around in alarm. Lyra's expression changed, her eyes wide with concern. "It's them. They found us." Panic surged within Jake. He grabbed Lyra's hand, pulling her away from the stream. "We have to move now." They ran through the trees, ducking behind bushes and climbing over rocks. The sounds of the enemy ship grew louder, its engines roaring above them. Jake's heart raced as they tried to escape. "We need to find shelter," he shouted. They spotted a dense thicket nearby. "Over there," Lyra pointed. They dashed toward it, hiding behind the thick foliage just as the enemy ship soared overhead. Jake could see figures moving around on the ship, and he felt his heart pound in his chest. "Stay quiet," he whispered, holding his breath. They crouched low, watching as the ship's crew searched for them. Fear filled the air, but Jake felt Lyra's hand in his, grounding him. "Jake, we can't stay here for long," Lyra whispered urgently. "If they don't find us soon, they will start looking elsewhere." Jake nodded, glancing around for a way out. "Let's wait for them to leave," he said, his voice low. "Then we can head back to the cave." After what felt like hours, the enemy ship finally flew away, its sound fading into the distance. Jake let out a sigh of relief. "We did it, but we can't let our guard down." Lyra looked at him, her eyes full of gratitude. "Thank you for keeping me safe. You are brave, Jake." Her words warmed his heart, and he felt more determined than ever to protect her. They cautiously made their way back to the cave, avoiding any open spaces. The lush forest felt different now, filled with the weight of danger. When they reached the cave, they quickly checked their supplies and planned their next steps. "We need to send a message tonight," Lyra said, her voice firm. "We cannot let fear control us. We must act." Jake nodded, feeling inspired by Lyra's strength. "Let's find a way to create a signal. Maybe we can use the materials around us." They began to gather sticks and stones from the cave. Lyra used her energy to help them create a makeshift signal device. "We can use this to reflect light into the sky. If my people are looking for me, they will see it," she explained, her hands moving swiftly. As the sun set, they finished the signal device. It was simple but effective. Jake felt a rush of hope. "This might actually work," he said, excitement bubbling in his chest. Lyra smiled, her eyes sparkling. "Now we must wait for nightfall and hope they see it." They settled in the cave, their spirits lifted. During the evening, they shared more stories, laughter filling the cave as they built their bond. They spoke about their dreams, their worlds, and their hopes for the future. Jake realized how much he admired Lyra, not just for her beauty, but for her bravery and determination. As night fell, they took turns watching the sky. When the stars began to twinkle, Jake felt a surge of hope. "This is it," he said, ready to send the signal. Lyra nodded, her expression serious but hopeful. With a deep breath, Jake activated the signal device. A beam of light shot into the sky, shining brightly against the darkness. They watched it glow, their hearts racing as they waited for a response. In that moment, Jake and Lyra felt a powerful connection. They were facing problems together, side by side, ready to confront whatever challenges lay ahead. No matter what happened, they knew they would fight for each other and for a brighter future. The danger approaches. As the night deepened, the stars sparkled above the cave, twinkling like tiny diamonds scattered across the dark sky. Jake and Lyra sat side by side, their hearts pounding as they anxiously awaited a response to their signal. Every sound in the forest seemed amplified, from the rustling leaves to the distant calls of strange creatures. "Do you think they saw it?" Jake asked, his voice low and filled with hope. Lyra turned to him, her face illuminated by the soft glow of the signal device. "I believe they did. But we must be ready for anything. My people are not just searching for me. They may also want to bring me back by force." Jake nodded, feeling a chill run down his spine. He had always known this mission would be dangerous, but now it felt more real than ever. "We need to find a way to defend ourselves," he said, glancing around the cave. "What do you think we can do?" Lyra looked thoughtful. "If we can find more materials, I can create some basic weapons, but we need to be careful. We don't know when they will arrive." With determination in their eyes, they gathered whatever they could find around the cave. Jake found a few sturdy sticks, while Lyra used her energy to manipulate rocks, shaping them into sharper edges. "These can work as simple knives," she explained, her hands deftly crafting the tools. As they worked, Jake couldn't help but admire Lyra's resourcefulness. She moved with confidence, her energy flowing around her like a protective aura. "You're amazing," he said, handing her a stick. "I don't know how you do it." Lyra smiled softly, a hint of blush on her cheeks. "Thank you, Jake. But we're a team. I couldn't do this without you." After a while, they had crafted several weapons. They placed them near the entrance of the cave, ready to use if necessary. As they finished, Lyra's expression suddenly shifted. "Jake, I feel something," she said, her brow furrowing. "What is it?" Jake asked, worry creeping into his voice. "It's a disturbance in the energy around us. I think they are getting closer." Jake's heart raced. "How close?" Lyra closed her eyes for a moment, concentrating. "Not far. We need to hide." They quickly moved deeper into the cave, finding a dark corner where they could see the entrance without being seen. Jake's mind raced. He couldn't believe how quickly their situation had changed. Just days ago, he was a regular human, and now he was part of an intergalactic struggle. As they waited, Jake felt the weight of the moment. "Lyra, what if they come for you? What if they find us?" he whispered. "They will not take me without a fight," she replied, her voice strong. "I will protect you, Jake. You mean too much to me." Her words resonated in his heart, filling him with courage. Just then, they heard a low hum outside the cave. Jake's breath caught in his throat. "They're here," he exclaimed, gripping Lyra's hand tightly. The hum grew louder, and a shadow fell over the entrance. Lyra's eyes widened. "They're using a cloaking device. We need to be quiet and wait." Jake felt fear creeping in, but he reminded himself of Lyra's bravery. "We can do this," he said, squeezing her hand. They watched in silence as the figures began to approach, their forms illuminated by the moonlight. The enemy soldiers were tall and imposing, clad in dark armor. They'd moved with precision, scanning the area for any signs of life. Jake's heart raced as they drew closer, his mind racing with thoughts of how to protect Lyra. "What do we do?" Jake whispered, his voice barely audible. "We wait for the right moment," Lyra replied, her eyes locked on the soldiers. "They won't expect us to be ready." As the soldiers continued their search, one of them suddenly pointed toward the cave. "This way. I feel something," he called out, causing Jake's stomach to drop. "Get ready," Lyra urged, her voice steady. They picked up their makeshift weapons, prepared to defend themselves. The soldiers entered the cave, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. Jake and Lyra remained hidden, hearts pounding in unison. The tension in the air was thick, and Jake felt every nerve in his body on high alert. Suddenly, one of the soldiers stepped too far into the cave. He stopped, scanning the area. "It's dark in here. Search everywhere," he barked, signaling his team to move in closer. Jake's instincts kicked in. He glanced at Lyra, and they both nodded, ready to act. As the soldier turned his back, they sprang into action. Jake leaped forward, using his stick to strike the soldier on the back of his knee. The soldier stumbled, and Lyra followed suit, using her sharpened rock to slice at the soldier's arm. The soldier shouted in surprise as he fell, and the other soldiers rushed in. "They're here," one shouted, but Jake and Lyra were ready. With adrenaline pumping, they fought fiercely. Lyra moved gracefully, using her energy to dodge and strike with precision. Jake, fueled by determination, swung his makeshift weapon with all his strength. Despite their fear, they worked together seamlessly, defending themselves against the attackers. But they were outnumbered, and Jake knew they couldn't hold them off forever. "Lyra, we have to find a way out," he shouted over the chaos. Just then, one soldier charged at Jake, swinging a heavy weapon. Jake barely managed to sidestep the blow, feeling the rush of air as the weapon missed him. He retaliated with a swift kick, sending the soldier sprawling to the ground. But there were too many soldiers, and Jake could see the tide turning. "Lyra, we need a way out," he yelled, his voice urgent. She glanced around the cave, her eyes darting as she searched for an escape. "There's a tunnel in the back. We can use it to slip away." Jake nodded, and they fought their way to the back of the cave, pushing through the throng of soldiers. They could hear the shouts of their enemies growing louder, but they pressed on, adrenaline propelling them forward. As they reached the tunnel, Lyra turned to Jake, her face serious. "You go first. I'll cover you." "No, we go together," Jake insisted, but Lyra shook her head. "I won't let you get caught. Go now." Reluctantly, Jake stepped into the tunnel, but he couldn't leave Lyra behind. "We're in this together," he shouted, reaching out for her. Lyra smiled, her eyes fierce. "I promise I will follow. Just go." With a heavy heart, Jake squeezed through the narrow opening of the tunnel. He could hear Lyra unleashing her energy, creating distractions to hold off the soldiers. The sounds of the battle echoed behind him, but he pressed on, determined to reach safety. The tunnel twisted and turned, and Jake felt the damp earth beneath his feet. He ran as fast as he could, hoping Lyra would be right behind him. He knew she was strong, but he couldn't shake the feeling of worry that gnawed at him. Finally, the tunnel opened into a small clearing outside. Jake stumbled into the open air, gasping for breath. He quickly turned to look back, waiting for Lyra to follow. "Come on, Lyra," he shouted, but there was no response. Panic surged within him as he realized the danger she faced. Suddenly, he heard the sounds of fighting in the distance. He couldn't leave her. He had to go back. Taking a deep breath, he steeled himself and turned to re-enter the tunnel, determined to find her and fight by her side once more. As he stepped back into the darkness, he felt a mix of fear and courage. They had faced danger together, and he wasn't about to let it end here. Together, they would overcome any obstacle, because that's what they had promised each other. The hidden truth. Jake squeezed through the narrow tunnel, his heart racing. He had to find Lyra. The sounds of the battle echoed in his mind, filling him with fear and determination. He could not let her face the soldiers alone. As he emerged back into the cave, the air was thick with tension. The lights from the soldiers' flashlights flickered like angry fireflies, casting shadows on the walls. Jake's pulse quickened as he searched for Lyra, desperately hoping she was okay. "Lyra," he called out, his voice echoing in the cave. There was no answer, only the sounds of chaos around him. He felt a knot tighten in his stomach. She was brave, but the odds were against her. Just then, a figure stepped into view. It was one of the soldiers, looking around as he regained his footing after being pushed back. Jake quickly ducked behind a rock, holding his breath as the soldier scanned the cave. He had to think fast. Jake spotted a loose stone nearby. Picking it up, he threw it toward the far side of the cave. The noise caught the soldier's attention, and he turned to investigate. Taking advantage of the distraction, Jake slipped deeper into the shadows, hoping to find Lyra. He moved carefully, keeping an eye out for any signs of her. As he searched, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The soldiers were searching for them, but why were they so determined? What did they want with Lyra? In a small alcove, Jake found a small control panel, its lights blinking rhythmically. Curiosity pulled him closer. He glanced around to ensure no one was watching before examining it. The panel looked like it controlled some sort of communication device. Maybe this could help, he thought, pressing a few buttons. The screen flickered to life, revealing a series of messages. Jake squinted at the text, his heart pounding as he read. It showed a list of names and coordinates, including Lyra's name. He realized they were tracking her, but why? What did they want from her? The messages hinted at a plan, a deeper mission involving Lyra and her home planet. Suddenly, the panel beeped loudly, startling Jake. He quickly pressed another button, trying to silence it. To his surprise, a holographic image appeared above the panel, showing a map of the area with various points marked. One of them was blinking red, Lyra's location. Just as Jake was about to study the map further, he heard footsteps approaching. Panic surged through him, and he quickly moved away from the panel. He needed to find Lyra before it was too late. He crept back into the main cave, heart racing. The sounds of the battle were still intense, but he couldn't focus on that. All he could think about was Lyra. "Where are you?" he whispered, moving quietly through the shadows. Suddenly, he heard voices coming from a nearby chamber. Curiosity and concern pushed him closer, and he carefully peered around the corner. To his horror, he saw Lyra being surrounded by several soldiers. They had her cornered, and she looked fierce but trapped. The soldiers were demanding answers, and Jake's heart sank. He couldn't let them take her. He could hear snippets of their conversation. "You know the truth about your planet, Princess. You can't hide it from us any longer." One soldier shouted, pointing an accusing finger at her. Lyra stood tall, her eyes blazing with defiance. "I will never tell you anything. You think you can threaten me. I won't give in." Jake felt a surge of pride at her bravery, but he knew he had to act. He couldn't let her face them alone. Taking a deep breath, he stepped into the open, ready to fight for her. "Let her go," Jake shouted, his voice strong. The soldiers turned, surprised to see him. "Another human. You should have run away while you could." One soldier sneered, raising his weapon. But Jake wasn't afraid. "I won't let you hurt her." He moved closer to Lyra, positioning himself between her and the soldiers. "Foolish boy," another soldier said, a smirk on his face. "You have no idea what you're up against." Jake felt a rush of determination. "I know enough. You're after her for a reason, and I won't let you take her." Lyra looked at Jake, a mix of gratitude and worry in her eyes. "You shouldn't be here, Jake. It's too dangerous." "Dangerous or not, I'm not leaving you," he replied, glancing back at the soldiers. "We'll face them together." The soldiers exchanged glances, clearly irritated by their unexpected opposition. "Enough of this. We need to capture her now," one of them shouted, stepping forward. In that moment, Lyra's energy surged around her, and she used it to push back against the soldiers. "Stay back," she commanded, her voice filled with power. The soldiers stumbled, momentarily caught off guard. Jake seized the opportunity. "Now, Lyra, let's go." They dashed toward the cave exit, Lyra's energy creating a protective shield around them. Jake could feel the rush of energy, a reminder of how connected they had become. As they reached the entrance, the soldiers regained their footing. "Don't let them escape," one shouted, rushing toward them. But Jake and Lyra were already outside, the cool night air hitting their faces. They sprinted into the forest, their hearts racing with fear and exhilaration. "We have to find a safe place to hide," Jake urged, glancing back to see the soldiers charging after them. "They won't stop until they catch us," Lyra exclaimed, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. But as they ran deeper into the forest, Jake knew they had each other, and together they would uncover the hidden truth of why the soldiers were after her. The battle may have just begun, but their resolve was stronger than ever. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it together. A new hope. Jake and Lyra dashed through the thick alien forest, branches scratching against their arms as they moved. The sounds of the soldiers pursuing them echoed behind, but their hearts were filled with determination. They would not give up. They had come too far and faced too much to back down now. Over there, Lyra shouted, pointing to a small clearing ahead. We can hide there and plan our next move. They ran toward the clearing, which was surrounded by tall, strange trees. The moonlight filtered through the leaves, casting a soft glow around them. As they reached the clearing, they ducked behind a cluster of bushes, trying to catch their breath. "Do you think they saw us?" Jake asked, peeking out to check for any signs of the soldiers. "I don't know," Lyra replied, her brow furrowed in worry. "But we need to come up with a plan. We can't keep running forever." Jake nodded, his mind racing. "We need to find out why they are after you. There must be something about you that they want." Lyra looked down, her expression serious. "I know. They mentioned the truth about my planet. There's something I've been hiding, something that could change everything." "What do you mean?" Jake asked, his curiosity piqued. "I was born with special powers," Lyra admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "My people are known for their ability to manipulate energy, but they also fear it. If the soldiers get their hands on me, they will use my powers for their own gain." Jake's heart raced as he processed her words. "So, they want to control you. That's why they're after you." "Yes," she said, her eyes shining with a mixture of fear and determination. "But I won't let that happen. I will fight for my freedom, and the freedom of my people." Jake felt a surge of admiration for Lyra. She was strong and brave, and he wanted to help her in any way he could. "We need to find a way to turn the tables. If we can gather allies or somehow disable their control, we might stand a chance." Lyra's face lit up with hope. "I know of a secret place, a hidden village where my people gather. If we can reach them, they may help us fight back." "Then let's go," Jake said, his excitement growing. "Where do we find this village?" Lyra took a deep breath and pointed east. "It's not far from here, but we have to be careful. The soldiers patrol the area, and they may have already sent scouts out." Jake felt a mixture of fear and determination. "We can do this, Lyra. Together, we'll find the village and your people. They need to know what's happening." With a shared sense of purpose, they made their way through the forest, staying low and quiet. They moved quickly but cautiously, listening for any signs of danger. The tension in the air was thick, but they were fueled by their hope and determination. After a while, they reached the edge of a small river. The moonlight reflected off the water, creating a serene and beautiful scene. "This is it," Lyra said, pointing to a narrow path that ran along the riverbank. "We need to follow this path to reach the village." They began to walk along the path, the sound of water flowing beside them, providing a calming backdrop. "What do you think will happen when we get to your people?" Jake asked, glancing at Lyra. "I hope they will believe us," she replied, her voice steady but filled with uncertainty. "They may be hesitant to trust a human, but I know I can convince them that you're on our side." Jake smiled at her confidence. "I will do whatever it takes to prove myself to them. You're not alone in this fight." They continued along the path, their spirits lifted by the promise of hope. But as they approached the village, they suddenly heard voices ahead. The sound of footsteps and hushed whispers made them freeze. Jake and Lyra quickly ducked behind a large rock, peeking around to see a group of alien figures gathered near a small campfire. They were speaking in hushed tones, their expressions serious. "Those must be your people," Jake whispered, excitement bubbling in his chest. "Yes," Lyra replied, her eyes wide with anticipation. "But we need to approach carefully. If they see us as a threat, they might attack." Taking a deep breath, Lyra and Jake slowly stepped out from behind the rock. They held their hands up to show they meant no harm. "We come in peace," Lyra called out, her voice steady. The figures turned, surprised to see them. One of them stepped forward, an older alien with deep green skin and wise eyes. "Who are you, and what do you want?" he asked, suspicion evident in his tone. "I am Lyra, daughter of the late king," she said, her voice filled with authority. "And this is Jake, my ally. We are being hunted by soldiers who wish to use my powers for their own purposes." The elder's eyes narrowed as he studied them. "You expect us to believe this? A human and a princess together?" "Yes," Lyra exclaimed, her voice strong. "I know it's hard to believe, but we need your help. The soldiers are coming, and if we don't act fast, they will take me and use my powers to destroy our world." The elder's expression softened as he listened to her words. "If what you say is true, we cannot let that happen. We have been waiting for a leader to rise against the tyranny of those who seek to control us." Jake felt a spark of hope ignite within him. "We can fight together. I may be human, but I have seen what they are capable of, and I will stand with you." The elder nodded, a slow smile forming on his face. "Very well. We will help you, Lyra. Together, we will stand against those who wish to harm us." As the villagers gathered around, Jake and Lyra felt a sense of unity and strength. They had found allies, and together, they could fight for their freedom. The road ahead would be challenging, but with newfound hope, they were ready to face whatever came next. In that moment, Jake realized that they were not just fighting for their own lives. They were fighting for a future filled with possibility and hope. Together, they would uncover the truth and protect what mattered most.